Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com. Our Phillies mailbag continues on right now here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. He joins us now as the Phillies 5 back, Frank. They're slipping and sliding. Are they out of this race?
Yeah, it's hard to say they are, but it's really not looking very good at the moment. I think that's fair to say.
All right, let's, one thing is, first off, tell us what happened last night and with this whole situation with them using creme brulee blowtorches to try to clear the – what happened last night? Give us the background on that, because I think a lot of people have maybe bailed and started watching football and have no idea what happened.
Yeah, so I think what happened in this case is – and a lot of people don't realize it. So when the Phillies were away over the last several days, you leave the field exposed, okay? So it's grass, okay? So you need sun, you need rain, okay? So like any good, groundskeeper would do, they left the tarp off thinking, okay, good, we'll get some rain onto that tarp. So what ends up happening is they get 3.6 inches of rain, which is well beyond what any weather forecaster thought. And that just simply was too much. So, you might ask the question, well, why would you leave the tarp? Why wouldn't you leave the tarp on the field? Well, yes, you do want some rain because you need the grass to grow. Unfortunately, it was much more rain than was expected. And really, the grounds crew, they spent all day yesterday working on that. They came in the morning, they realized it was a problem, labored all day, and even got Bryce Harper in to help do some raking. And despite the blowtorches, despite Bryce Harper's help, they just could not get it together. And it's just an unfortunate turn of events. And it's funny. I it reminded me of one time I attended a quote unquote rain out up in Trenton. As I was going to see the Trenton Thunder, where it was a bright sunny day, and the same thing happened. There was too much rain the night before, never really fully drained, and they just plain couldn't play.
And of course, people, I guess, showed up last night, paid, and thought that there might have been a game. I mean, so the game would have been played had the field been in condition.
Yeah, and it's a real shame, too, because I think they were really optimistic that they could get it done, and they really worked up until the last possible minute. And to the fans in the stands, a lot of them got there early. They bought their cheesesteak, they bought their beer, paid for parking, of course, and they sat down in their seats, and they were just stunned that the thing wasn't going to come together because, it did rain all day long in Philadelphia, not a lot, but by the time it was time for the game, it was actually pretty clear in Philadelphia. But unfortunately, the leftover results were really what got them, and hopefully with this incoming hurricane that it doesn't really hit Philly that bad, at least the remnants, because things are very, very saturated. It could be a messy week or two, depending on where those hurricane remnants end up.
Well, they're lucky they're getting the one in right now, I would guess. I mean, I just saw Asdrubal Cabrera kind of stomping down on the field. It seems that it's still a little bit mushy. I mean, it doesn't seem that this is a top-level, major league-ready infield right now.
No, and the shame of it is there's still a chance of rain tonight, so the Phillies very well could end up having this interrupted at some point. Now, it's not raining in Philadelphia right now, but it very well could be soon. The skies are a little ominous.
All right, Frank Klose, 97.3 ESPN.com. His mailbag is open. The Phillies are taking on the Nationals right now. 5 back of the Braves, and obviously they're running out of time. Now you're starting to get into that territory where you got to win games and you got to start gobbling them up. We talked about the record against the Marlins and the Mets. The Phillies are 15-7 in those games. The Braves are 26-9. I think really right there, Frank, that kind of tells the story of this season. The Mets and the Marlins have been the problem for the Phillies because they've been pretty good against everybody else.
And really, it makes no sense on paper because, the Marlins, they had their latest fire sale. The Mets, everybody has been hurt, and it's just unbelievable that they were not able to capitalize on this, especially when the Phillies had so much success against so much else in the league. I mean, you look throughout their season, they had a lot of really big wins against a lot of really tough teams, and next thing you know, in come the Marlins, in come the Mets, and they can never seem to get it together. And I think when it's all said and done, it really is the NL East that's going to be what ended up costing them a playoff spot.
Yep, and when you look at it, that's one of the questions that Dane wants to know. Will the Phillies recover and win the division, or is it too late? Now, they're just as far back in the division as they are as the wild card right now.
Correct, yeah. So here's my thoughts at this point of why it's going to be really, really, really tough. Now, people like to point to the Phillies having 7 games left against the Braves. Now, if the Phillies go 4-3 against the Braves and essentially win the 2 series, they only pick up a single game. And if you go, 4-3 doesn't do much for you with 1 game. And even if you go 5-2, right, you only pick up 3 games. You got to go 6-1 to make up these 5 games. So it's not impossible. It's very unlikely. And I think the shame of it is, this past week, I kept talking about September 3rd through 9th as being the key time for the Phillies to make up some ground.
Yep.
And they did not make up any ground because they, while the Braves got swept by the Red Sox, the Phillies only won 1 game against the Marlins. And then Atlanta seemed to, and by the way, look at that Arizona series where they played them for 4. The Braves bullpen was not good. But essentially what happened in those games, and I sat and watched a lot of them, were that the Braves gutted out late-inning victories time and time again, even after their bullpen would blow it for them. So what's happening now is the Braves are starting to get it together while the Phillies are starting to fall apart. And I think that's a bad combination. That if you're hoping that the Phillies are going to pick up some ground, it's not going to be because the Braves are losing. I mean, they seem to Braves again last night facing the San Francisco Giants. That was another game where they scored 3 late inning runs to really pull ahead of the Giants, and that's how they won. So the Braves offense seems to be coming around at a very key time and getting hot. And I don't think you can count on the Braves being as poor as they were over the last month, which really was what let the Phillies hang around to begin with, is that the Braves were kind of falling apart.
Right. I mean, there's games in August when the Phillies were not playing very well. The Braves weren't doing their part. They were keeping the Phillies in the race. I mean, you can essentially say, yeah, those losses hurt the Phillies, but the Braves weren't capitalizing on them. Now they are, and that's why the Phillies are starting to fade.
Yeah, the Braves do have a couple of tough series that the Phillies don't. They do get to face the Cardinals, but unless the Phillies just step up and sweep the Nationals here, or while the Braves maybe lose the next couple to San Francisco, there's really nothing on paper, at least, that seems like it's an obvious time anymore for the Phillies to make up some ground.
At this stage, you almost rather be facing teams that are in the mix rather than teams that are out of it.
Yeah, and the Phillies are going to end up facing 4 in Colorado, and I think that's something that compounds this because right now the National League West is very much up for grabs, and you have 3 teams all kind of fighting: the Diamondbacks, you have the Dodgers, and you also have the Rockies still kind of in it. So the Phillies are also going to come, and that's 4 games in Colorado at the end of the season. So the Phillies are going to have some tough battles there, even though the Braves are going to have perhaps a tough battle in the series against the Cardinals.
We're talking with Frank Klose at 973 ESPN. When you take a look at the Phillies mailbag, go to 973ESPN.com, I should say, for his Phillies mailbag answers to your questions. And the last one we want to dive into is we see that Pavetta's pitching today, but this staff has really run out of gas, it seems like, down the stretch. So, interestingly enough, they have the most players out of everybody in the big leagues right now. They're up to 39 guys, but why not bring up Cole Irvin to help with this rotation?
Yeah, when I wrote this, the Phillies had not yet done which they did today, which was they added Drew Anderson, they added Ranger Suarez, and they added Enyel De Los Santos. So the Phillies literally, as you said, have everybody active on their 40-man roster who's not hurt. The only one that's hurt right now is Aaron Loop. And the question might have been, do you bring up somebody like Cole Irvin? Now, Cole Irvin, if you're not familiar with him, he won the International League Pitcher of the Year award, and he set a new record for the Iron Pigs franchise for wins. He led the league in ERA. He was within a couple of leading the league in strikeouts, too. So this is a guy who almost pitched a Triple Crown at AAA in terms of the pitching record. So, but he is somebody that really could help the Phillies. Right now, they really don't have a roster spot for him. The one thing that I think could open up a roster spot for somebody like Irvin is Aaron Loop. If he is not going to come back, then I think you move him to the 60-day disabled list, and you try to find a way to get Irvin on your roster doing that. And I would give Irvin a start if it was me. But Eflin, Eflin has not been good. I think of the three that are in the back end of that rotation of the Velasquez, Pivetta, Eflin variety, I think Eflin has been the most disappointing the second half, and he's somebody I would like to see take a break and let somebody else get a shot at a start. But there's this rain out yesterday is going to screw up their starting rotation too. So it remains to be seen if they're going to add somebody else. Now they added 3 starters from the Iron Pigs in De Los Santos, Anderson, and Suarez. I think if you start any of those 3 guys, you're essentially conceding the game. I don't think that they are all major league ready. They got one nice start out of De Los Santos. I thought the Rangers Suarez start showed that he was way overmatched at this point in his career. So if I'm the Phillies, I would let Cole Irvin have at least one start, maybe the one that you need to deal with from this rain out, and see what you can do. But the only reason why I can, and for baseball reasons, see them doing it is that they think he's thrown too many innings and it's just exhausted because he's been through the system. He's never thrown as much as he had, and maybe they don't want to throw any more work on him this year.
Frank Klose, of course, the Phillies with a double dip today. We'll see what happens as the Phils are now 5 back of the Braves in the National League East. They are fading, and look, it's a lot. It's you could look over the course of this season at games to stick out, but that 15-17 record against the Mets and the Marlins, the 2 worst teams in your division, ultimately seems like the biggest difference in this series right now, in this race right now with the Atlanta Braves, who the Braves tonight, Frank, where are the Braves? They have the
Braves are in San Francisco. They're playing late.
Okay, yep. I was going to say, I'm looking at the schedule here, and now there they are, the last one, 10:15, the latest start of the night. They're out in San Francisco. So we'll keep our eyes on the Phils, of course. 5 games back, Frank Klose. And, of course, you can read all of Frank's stuff at 973ESPN.com. Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, guys.